Okay, good morning, guys. Today I want to still talk about Chapter 1B. While I set up, does anybody have any question? You guys can either type it in or press on the talk button on the top left-hand corner of your screen, and you should be able to talk if you have a if you have a question, or just type it in the chat window. Okay, so so if you don't have any question, you should be able to see my screen, my computer screen. Okay, so what's new in Chapter 1B is the whole idea of flowcharts and pseudocode. And last time we talked about the practice that you have to do in order for this to make sense. Okay. So what I would suggest is that you just start practicing, and by practicing I mean really doing it on a piece of paper. Okay, and you zoom out. You we talked about this concept of zooming out of the program, and then keep zooming back in order to solve any kind of a problem. So like in this example, right, we have, as you're looking at it from top down, what you have is a one-way selection. So if this is a one-way selection, then you just type in if. How do I know it's an if and not a while? Because it is the arrows only pointing down, and they do not point back. They do not go back right above the condition H diamond shape. So it's going to be an if. So if condition H is true, then I need to do something. Now, here when I look at the flow chart, there is nothing on the no side. So that means I will not have an else statement or an else clause. So because of that, I just type in and if. Okay. If you would have something on the no side, then you would just type in else. Okay. So don't try to solve this as a top-down approach when you just start at the top, and then one line at a time you try to write down everything that you need to know. Look at the structures. Okay. So normally the if condition, or an if, or a selection statement, selection shape, would have two separate paths. And in those two separate paths you would do something. Now because in this case, in this flow chart, I do not see anything on the no side, I remove the else statement. So now everything gonna belong to the if condition. So I know I need to indent it. So what is it that I indent? I indent the step J. Then I have step something. Okay, so remember we are zoomed out. So the only thing that we see is there's something more structured, and I don't want to deal with that right now. Okay, and then we have step L. So you can see that it is nothing but a sequential statement, 3 sequential statements inside an if condition. Now we start zooming in, and we need to figure out what are those question marks. So now you go back to the question marks, and then you say, okay, what does that look like? Now that's a condition M. In that condition M, we have two different paths, either yes or no. And the yes goes back above the diamond shape. Now if step N would end up and will go back all the way to step J, that would not be a structured program. So that would be a problem. That would be a unstructured, a spaghetti type of code. So you need to look at the proper structured shapes. So here we can see that step N goes back above the diamond shape. We want to make sure that there is nothing between the arrow pointing back to the previous path and reaching the diamond shape. There is nothing in between. So it is a structured program, so that's perfectly fine. But that arrow pointing back to the diamond shape also tells me this is a loop, so I have to use the while statement. And here we say while condition, and in this case we have condition M, and if it is true, then we're going to do something. So skip down a few lines to give some space for the body of this loop. And I close down this statement. So now I know that there's something needs to go inside. But notice that the while statement and the end while statements are at the same level with step J and step L, because that was our step question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. Okay? And they were all on the same level. Those were the three boxes for my sequential statement. So now the body of the while loop, the only thing that we see is step N inside. And this is what our pseudocode looks like. Okay? So one step at a time, zoom out, and then try to figure out what is it that you need to work on, what is it that you need to solve within each one of those steps. So let's see if we have another example of this. So let me see if you guys have any questions so far. Okay, no questions. Okay, so in this example, how do we do this one? Again, we look at it, and it's no different than the previous one. So I can see that outside there is the shape that I'm looking at is the if condition, the condition H. Condition H has the no and the yes side of it. So I can just start writing my statement again. If condition H is true, then what do I need to do? Well, I don't know, but I need to close it down somewhere. Do I need the else keyword here? No, we don't need the else keyword, because this is again a one-way selection. So we have step J. Step J is inside the if condition. Then we have step we don't know. And then finally we have step L. So you can see that we still have the same type of three sequential steps what we need to accomplish when we are in this if condition. Now what is step question mark? Well, step question mark, condition M, there's an arrow pointing right above question N. So that makes it a while statement or a while loop. So while condition M is true, okay, then what do we do? Well, we don't know, so I need to make sure that I end the while statement. Okay. So now we are moving inside, and we need to figure out what is the body of this while loop. So step J, the keyword while, the keyword end while, and step L is at the same level, because those are the three steps to our sequential statement. Now the body of the while loop needs to be indented to show that the statements following right now will be belonging to the while loop. I don't know if you guys can hear the fan on my computer. I can't do anything with that. So if it's too loud, sorry about that, but I can't turn it off. Okay, so now we are in the while loop. So you're looking at from the condition M all the way circling around back to right above condition M. So you're only looking at the yes path from condition N. So condition M is running into, the very first thing what you see there is a two-way selection. And that is your condition O. So if we have condition O, I need to look at what's inside of it. What's inside of it, that we're going to have to do something if it's no, and we're going to have to do something if it's yes. So again, all this is going to belong to the while loop, the while statement, so I need to indent it, and I say if condition O is true, then what do I need to do? Well, I don't want to deal with it right now, the details. I need to finish up my structure. So we're going to do something on both sides of the if statement. So I'm going to put in the else, and then finally I close down the if statement. So everything that we do within the while loop is going to be inside the while, inside the if statements. So there is nothing else on the same level but the if keyword, else keyword, and the end if keywords. That's the only thing that we do inside the if statement, the while loop. So now what belongs to the if clause? Now when you do something, and you only do something if the condition is true, you call that the if clause, or you can call it the true clause. If you do something as a result of the condition being false, then we call that the else clause. So if the condition O is true, what is it that we need to do? So I'm looking at the condition O, following the yes arrow. So that means I have to do step P. And then I go back to the condition and look at condition O, and looking at the keyword no, following the arrow no, and I'm going to end up on step Q. There are no more question marks, so that means you're done with the flowchart. Okay? So try to remember all the basic shapes. What is the shape of these basic structures? So the loop structure, the selection structure, and the sequence structure. This is what you keep in mind as you're zooming out and you're looking at somebody's code. You need to identify these blocks of doing something. Okay? So every time you have a structure containing statements, you indent it within that structure. So let's see. For the sequence, what would be the basic structure? If we really need to do an actual program, what we're going to have to start with is start, and we end every program with a stop. So that means in every program you're going to have a start and the stop position, a terminal position. So here with the sequence you would have not just step, but maybe a statement A, statement B, and maybe statement C. So that's the basic structure, right? Everything is indented within start and stop. In sequence, everybody is on the same level. In selection, again, you start your program, and somewhere we need to stop the program. Now everything is indented within the start and stop. If I have to have a condition, it's a selection statement. It's going to have a if keyword. And then we have a condition. Condition A is true. Then what do I do? So if it's a two-way selection, we have the else keyword at the same level, indentation level, as the if keyword. And then we close down the if statement. So whatever we do inside the if block or the if clause, okay, we have the statement A, statement B, statement C, as many statements as you need. Okay, all those going to be considered. All those going to be the part of the if clause. So if the condition A is true, then statement A, B, and C, A, B, and C will all be executed. But if the statement or the condition A is false, then maybe D, and maybe a statement E will be executed. Okay, so that's just a basic two-way selection. So now what would happen if we would have a one-way selection? A one-way selection would have the same thing, but without the else statement. Okay, so this would be your one-way selection. So as far as the loop is concerned, we have the start and the stop positions, terminal positions, and loop, the arrow goes back above the diamond shape. There's nothing between the arrow going back to the previous path and the top of the diamond shape. So because it's a loop, we use the keyword while. While condition, let's say A, is true, okay, we only do while loops on the yes side. So there is no while loop on the no side. So we always design it as far as the condition is resulting in true. And it's going to make a lot more sense when we start programming and you actually writing programs. Right now you just understand the basic concepts, okay? And why it is important, right? We're talking about structured programs. This is the way that you should write all your programs. They should have this kind of structure to it. So then we have the and while. Again, I don't worry about what's inside of it right now. There is no else clause in loops. You only consider when something is true. And then you have the whatever statements you're going to put inside. Okay. Statement A and statement B and so forth. Right? So this would be the basic flowchart or a basic pseudocode for our basic flowchart shapes or basic flowchart structures. Okay. Okay, so let's look at another one. Okay, so last time we talked about that. Why is this structure a bad structure right here? Why is it that you do not want to have something like this? Okay, if you have a condition H and a condition H is false, you consider or you run J. If condition I is false, you're running the same J. And you do not want to have that. You need to get rid of this no line and have a new no line with a copy of J, where we're making the exact copy of J steps or J statements. So that way the two-way selections are not overlapping. Overlapping two-way selections are a very bad idea. It is not structured coding. Okay. So eventually you come up with that dotted line is what you deleted, and now you have two independent selection statements that are not overlapping. So now this right here is one single two-way selection, and let's call it maybe A. So that means the shape H is a two-way selection if you really zoom out, really far out, and you don't really look at the inside of the shape. So if it's no, if H is no, we execute J. If H is yes, then we execute A. So you can see that the boxes, when you represent something with a box, the box can have internal structure, and that's perfectly fine. Okay? So it depends how detailed you want to be, but eventually you want to be as detailed as possible. So you don't want to leave it as H, J, and A, but you want to drill it down and actually go to the point when you come up with this complete flowchart. Okay, so now we have something more complex. Okay, and this is what you really need to focus on and see if you can do it. And that's what we're talking about. You want to cover up one half of the screen or one half of this page and try to see if you can recreate the pseudocode first and then do the same thing with the flowchart. Okay. So let's see. Let's see if we can follow through this and create our flowchart. Okay, so you can see that a complete program starts and stops at terminal keywords. So we have start and we have stop. So it starts with those terminal keywords. So let's go ahead and look at it and see what kind of shapes that you see here. So we have catch a dog, and then we have a structure. So we don't know what that is. So we have catch the dog, but it is indented in start, right? Because start and the stop is the beginning and end of our program. And then here, I'm just going to put in a bunch of question marks. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to look at the structure as a single box, a single step. And while I'm writing the skeleton of this program, I don't want to bog down and look at each individual details yet. So then what do? I need to turn on the water, right? So that's on the same level as catching the dog, all the question marks, because it is just a part of the sequential statements. So we turn on the water, and after that we have something that's structured again. So it has an internal structure, so I'll skip that. Okay. And then we are down to get the dog wet and apply shampoo. Get dog wet and apply shampoo. Okay. Then I look down and I can see that there is again a structure. So there is the diamond shape, a bunch of stuff inside, and the arrow points back right above the diamond shape. So that's my question marks right there. I don't worry about it, right? But all of these are on the same indentation level. Right? They all belong to just start and stop. And then we're gonna rinse the dog. So that's what the program is. When you really looking at the wide, zoomed out structure of this, we catching the dog, we do something, and then we turn on the water, then we do something, then get the dog wet and shampoo it, then we do something, and then we rinse the dog. And now I go back and try to figure out what these question marks are. So I get rid of the question marks, I look at the structure, I look at the diamond shape. Diamond shape goes back above the diamond. The arrow goes back right above the diamond. So I'm gonna have to use the keyword while. So somewhere I need to end the while. End the while loop. Okay? So what is this condition? So while the dog run away. So while the dog run away is true, then what do I want to do? Okay? So because I started it properly and I used the keyword while and end while, and I'm skipping the space in between those two keywords, now I just need to remember to indent whatever is I'm going to do inside that while and end while keywords. So what is the only thing that we're going to do? We're going to catch a dog. Okay, so we just caught the dog, now we're done. Do we do anything else? No. So we caught the dog, and if the dog runs away, we catch it. And then we keep catching it until we caught the dog. So if now we have the dog, now we actually turn on the water. So we're doing something over and over again until we're doing it right, and then we go to the next step. So we turn on the water, and now what is it I'm looking at? Again, I'm getting rid of these question marks, and when I look at it, I can see a diamond shape, and the diamond shape eventually goes back. The arrows go back right above the diamond shape. So this also going to be a while keyword closed down with end while. And now I go and say, okay, what is my condition here? So while dog runs away again. So is true, then do something within that while loop. Okay? While the water is running. So don't just run after the dog and waste all the water. So first of all, we are inside this while loop. So when I'm zoomed out inside this while loop, I need to identify basic shapes. So first of all, I can see turn off water. That's one step. And then I need to catch the dog. And I need to do something, but it's a structure, so I don't want to deal with that right now. But the last step I need to do is turn on water. So I need to turn the water back on. So you can see this is 4 sequential statements, right? 4 sequential statements inside the while loop. Now I go back to the question mark and I look at what do I do inside the question mark. Now there's also another diamond shape where the arrow goes right above the diamond shape, so that's another while loop. So I say while. Okay. Remember, it is on the same level with turn off water, catch a dog, and turn on water back again, because it belongs to the while statement. So here we're going to have and while. So what is it that I'm trying to do when I caught the dog? The dog ran away again. So does dog run away is true, then what do? We catch the dog. Okay, so that catching the dog belongs to the while statement, so it is indented within the while and end while. So we don't have any more question marks, so that's good. We can go to this question mark right here, which is the bottom structure. Again, I can see that the arrow goes back above the diamond shape, so that means it's going to be a while keyword terminated by end while keyword. So I need to go back and figure out what is my condition. My condition is, did the dog run away? It's true. Then what do? Well, whatever we do, we go inside the while loop. So I'm only focusing on while loop, okay? One step at a time. What do? We turn off water, okay? Same level, the second step, after we turned off the water, we go after the dog and we're gonna catch the dog. And then we have to do something that's a little bit more complex, so I'm stepping over it at this point, and I'm looking at the next simple shape, and it says turn on water. Okay, and that's the end of it. Now we came up with new question marks, so in this new question mark I need to figure out what that is. Now that shape, again, let's see. Okay, so I'm looking at this right here. This is our last bunch of question marks. So I'm looking at it and say, okay, what happens to the arrow? The arrow goes back right above the diamond shape. That gives away the keyword that I need to use, and the keyword that I need to use is while and end while. Then I look at the condition. What is it that I'm checking for? I'm checking again if the dog ran away. So if the dog ran away is true, and sometimes you can also you can put it in a quotation marks, so just to see the actual question what you're asking, the actual condition, if that makes sense. Or sometimes you can put in a question mark. You can capitalize it if you want to be more grammatically correct, but this is a simplified English, so you do not have to be grammatically correct in these cases. We are just designing the code, so as soon as we have this code, we can follow the code and come up with an actual syntax based on a particular programming language. So at this point, we are not following any programming language syntax. We're just simplifying a design language using English, a simplified English language. Okay. So what do we do inside this while loop? The only thing we do is we catch the dog. Okay. So as you can see, now we are done. Now we are done with the whole pseudocode. Okay. And then you can do the same thing with the flowcharts. Okay. So you guys can cover up the flowchart. Just look at this pseudocode, and as you're looking at the pseudocode, you pretty much do the same thing what we did over here. Okay. So you can see that we, first of all, we have the terminating shape, which is usually an oval shape. Okay. And then we have rectangle. Okay. So we have the rectangle for catching the dog. I don't have a diamond shape, I guess. Okay. So we need a diamond shape for the logical statement. Okay. So I'm looking at it right here. Okay. Turn on the water is, again, nothing else but a rectangle. Okay. And then we have all this complicated while statement, right, from here to here. So that just tells me I need another diamond shape. Oops. So now we have another diamond shape. Then we look at getting the dog. Right? So that means I'm looking at this one line right here. We're just doing something. So that means it's just a rectangle. Then I'm looking at the while to the end while. So that, again, going to be a diamond shape. And after that, we have the rectangle again. And at that point, we close down the program. Okay? You see, this is just a bunch of sequential statements. But when we have the sequential statements, we also need to look at, okay, and we can look at the direction of this flow, right? Let's see, why is that thing white? Oh, there it is. Okay, so you can see this is the direction of the flow of this program, right? Okay, so now you go back and say, okay, what is this right here? What is this structure right here? Well, that structure has one thing that we need to do. So what is one thing we need to do? That is a rectangle shape. Okay, so I need to do a rectangle, and that's all I need to do inside. So what do I need to do over here? Oops. Okay. So rectangle, rectangle. We have another diamond shape, and then it's going to call from the rectangle. Okay. So only thing I need to do is rectangle, catch the dog. I can't catch the dog, so that means I need to have another diamond shape. Okay. And after I have the diamond shape, I need to turn on the water. So that's going to be my next rectangle. So now we go through and then we look at the next diamond shape that we don't know, or we kind of skipped so far, right? So rectangle, rectangle, we're going to have another diamond shape, and then we have the rectangle again. So it's pretty much the same thing what we did before. So I can just make a copy of this. Okay, and that's going to be my process going down. Just shift it over so you guys can see that it is a different shape. Okay, and now you're basically just connecting all these shapes, and this is where I'm going this way. Okay, then I'm coming back. When this is false, I'm going to the next shape, rectangle shape. Okay, so this is where we turn on the water, and then the dog still runs away. Because the dog runs away, I need to turn off the water. Then I need to catch the dog. Then the dog runs away again. And then I need to turn on the water. And at that point, let me just put it right here. Okay. We're gonna have to go back in front of that diamond shape. Now here the dog ran away, so we're gonna have to have running out a little bit of space right here. So we're gonna have to catch the dog. So that means we're going that way. We're gonna catch the dog, and now with this shape, we're going back above this diamond shape, this condition. Okay. Now you can see the general flow of the outside diamond shape and then the inside diamond shape. We call that nesting. Okay. Now if we finally caught the dog, we continue on. So this is where the program continues on. So we are finally getting the dog wet and applying the shampoo, and the dog can still run away. So when the dog runs away, we go through the same process. First we turn the water off, then we catch the dog. Well, just because we caught the dog, it doesn't mean we're going to hold on to the dog. So there's going to be something that we need to consider. And then eventually we're going to turn the water back on. So again, we are looping back around. We are at the end of our process. So again we are looping back around. Okay. And we go back and complete this diamond shape. This diamond shape says that the dog did run away again. So because of that, we have to catch the dog. We look back around. So we're catching the dog, trying to catch the dog until we are successful. So then we can turn on the water and then complete the washing process by actually rinsing the dog, and that's where our process ends. So our program stops. Okay. So again, look at the big picture, and then go into the details. Go further and further into details. Don't try to solve this in a top-down approach, because it's never going to work. Okay. So anyway, this is chapter 1B, and that's pretty much the only thing that's new in this chapter that you need to practice and get really good at: creating the pseudocode and the flowchart. And this is this dog washing example. It's a really good example. If you guys go through this, just like I did right now, and know it as much as you can basically do this without even looking at the book. So just imagine, how would you wash a dog, right? You would do this pretty much the same thing, right? And sometimes you would forget that the dog runs away and I run after the dog. Yeah, but the water is still running. Don't you need to turn off the water before you take off and run after the dog? Okay, so it is a logical process. We're not at coding yet, but we need to understand this logical process in order for us to be good at eventually coding problems like this. Okay. Let me see if you guys have any questions at this point. Okay. Seems like no questions. So, but if there is no question, I mean, there's nothing else in this chapter that I wanted to talk about. So, so we can stop the lecture right here. Hopefully, this little example or the step-by-step walkthrough of flowcharts and pseudocode helped you understand what this chapter is all about. Okay, so make sure that you read the chapter and the chapter material, do the exercises, and definitely do the review questions on eCampus over and over again until the chapter sounds simple and you understand all the questions and the answers to the questions. Okay. Otherwise, you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.